to do something that not everybody could do. And it required 5 days a week and 5 hours a day of standing in front of a mirror, practicing and practicing and practicing.
All great magicians that I've ever known or met loves to practice.
To make it look good, you should be fluent at it. You should be able to make it look easy no matter how hard it is.
Once the first mouth drops open in disbelief because you as a 12-year-old have done something really quite amazing, then the practice is worth it.
No matter how amazing his skills, the magician failed to progress from a street performer for hundreds of years. Wherever crowds gathered, there he would compete with the melee of traders and other entertainers for a few coins.
500 or 600 years ago, all magicians were sort of street performers, working outdoors at the fairs, working the street corners and buskers.
Early magicians were called jugglers and came from the school of the jester and the fool.
It comes from the French jongleurs, which basically was an all-round term to describe a speciality act. So a jongler would basically do magic, maybe a bit of juggling.
Perhaps he would sell people stuff to cure an ill, or he would read a fortune.
Plate spinning, contortions.
You know, he was basically a performer of all sorts of, he was a one-man theatre company. And mostly they would perform in places like fairs and fetes and stuff like that. But here's a guy who can suddenly make money appear from behind your ear, make gold coins appear from inside bread rolls and stuff like that. And it was amazing. This was a fantastic entertainment. He could do things that no one else could do.
One thing all magicians had to do, but which drew universal suspicion from their punters, was the ability to distract the eye, otherwise known as misdirection.
Well, if I'm sitting here and suddenly well, of course, you looked at the box too, didn't you?
Misdirection is a magician's most powerful weapon. The man who's going to do the next part of the trick is this man. So what he would do is he would start to put it in and say, look, here it is in the bag. Please feel it is in the bag. Feel. Don't break, okay? Now, are you with this girl? No. And that was all he was necessary to do. You see? And now, it's gone. Please, feel inside the bag, all right? And yes, any end, that doesn't matter. And you look inside the bag, all right? But in the audience, they were wrong because the egg was in there all the time.
It's more about directing attention so that at all times people feel like they're looking at the most important thing.
If they realize that they've been misdirected, then it wasn't misdirection, it was just bad. Misdirection is supposed to be something you're not aware of happening. You're not supposed to think, oh, I didn't see that, I was looking in the wrong place. Because then you know, because then you can work back. Then you can track it back and go, well, it must have been when he made me look over there that it happened. You know, what you want someone to do is come to the end of the trick and go, I don't get it. When could that possibly have happened? I was watching him the whole time. But of course they weren't watching the whole time. Or they were watching in the wrong place.
These, the secrets of trickery, led to magicians being regarded as disreputable. Street magic was associated with sharp practices. Magic tricks could be used to cheat in street gambling. We still see bystanders being shafted at three-card Monte on street corners today. And misdirection is also the tool of another group of street hustlers, the pickpockets.
The link between the pickpocket and the magician, of course, goes back to the market square, and there is that wonderful painting by Hieronymus Bosch of the cup and ball performer engaging a member of a small crowd in his magic at the same time as somebody sneaks up behind the spectator to pick the pocket.
Misdirection and the sleight of hand that is so common in magic certainly has a parallel over in pickpocketing. There are many, many examples where one can practically say that it's the same technique both in the dexterity aspect, coordination, timing, and certainly in misdirection. Today, when I perform, I really tell in advance that I am a pickpocket. And I do that because I find that regardless of how well informed they are, I can still do it. Have you ever heard of the word misdirection, diversion of attention that they use in magic?
What you're doing with me now?
Magic, exactly, diversion. Yes. I just wonder whether there was a difference between men and women. Okay, okay. Then I thank you. That was all. That was easy, wasn't it? Yeah. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. But sir, come back a second. Isn't the watch yours?
Yeah, I know, yes.
You know, if I were you, put it in your pocket, because otherwise I may take it again. No, put it inside. No, come on, put it in your pocket.
Put it in my pocket.
Where is not the key? The key. I took the key from you.
Yeah,
put it back. Put it back. No, you didn't. Put that back in your pocket. And if I take, you remember before you said I can keep the card? Yeah. If I find it, right? Well, that's the whole idea. Thank you so much for being part. Okay. Yes. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yeah. So now what about that? Thank you.
In the 18th century, close-up magic was still generally performed in the open. But one magician was beginning to find more lucrative ways of exploiting his talents.
If there was one magician, perhaps, who really achieved a turnaround, it would be a man called Isaac Fawkes, who actually made the egg bag famous.
And he performed mainly in London, but he was actually famous worldwide, which is incredible for the time. Before then, you know, magicians had always performed in marketplaces, wherever they could kind of like, you know, scrape a groat together. But he actually hired out venues, he put up his own tent and did shows within the tent. So the kind of genius of it was that the kind of PR side, he got audiences to come to pay to see him, rather than taking his act to the audiences.
And he's saying, come inside the tent and see this private show. It's just for you, but you have to pay to come into the tent. So you're making a commitment beyond the sort of walking casually by. But people do. People come into the tent and they stand and watch the show. People credit him as being the first guy to come up with these ideas.
Even though Isaac Fawkes was incredibly famous, it sounds as though his repertoire wasn't that different. It wasn't as though he was particularly innovative. Did a lot of card tricks. Apparently he did a trick where he took a pack of cards, threw it at the ceiling, and one card stuck there, and it was the chosen card. And amazingly, that is still one of the most popular close-up commercial card tricks today.
One of the most famous things about is he's described as producing hundreds of eggs out of a bag.
Which suggests that there was a bit of hype going on, because, you know, the egg bag has only ever got one egg involved. I mean, the story of him producing hundreds of eggs was obviously just a kind of like Chinese whispers kind of PR kind of thing to get people to see the show. It's just a cheap trick.
Fawkes also hired tavern rooms in which to perform.
He not only moves into better locations, but he's also saying, I want to do less work. He starts putting together what I suppose you would call the birth of the variety show. He says, let's get some other people. He's very keen on what he calls posture makers, basically contortionists. And that's great, so he gets to do his show, he's indoors, it's a lot more comfortable. But the problem with it is, you're in a tavern. People are drinking, people are having a wild time. They're perhaps not the most conducive to an audience. I often think that if people had a few drinks, that's great for magic, but if you have too many drinks, then you slip over the edge into being a yob. And also, it's kind of seedy. It's not really what he's looking for. He wants to move up a peg, he wants to get the better class of clientele, and they're not going to come to the tavern to watch him. So eventually he's taking over theatres, halls, places like that, and putting on bigger and better shows. He grew very rich out of it. I mean, really rich. For his day, he was a megastar.
Even those that have the eyes of hawks cannot catch out your servant, Isaac Fawkes.
By Fawkes's time, one of the close-up magician's main props was the playing card, which by the 18th century, the printing press had made readily available.
I called this the world's fastest card trick.
Playing cards, of course, weren't invented until about 1371 in Spain, and in those days were hand-painted. So not exactly an obvious choice for the ordinary conjurer.